Here, sir.
Three, two, one.
Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Happy Hour podcast. I am your host, Ricky Valera. On today's episode, we have a jam-packed one for you. Obviously, we have the Pro Bowl competition going on right now. There's dodgeball. There's, four square. They're playing Uno. I don't know what they're doing this week, but we're not going to talk about that. But this week of a jam-pack, we're going to talk about a quarterback retiring. We're going to talk about two head coaches getting hired. We're going to talk about Matthew Fox's top 10 Dynasty quarterbacks. We're going to dive into that. Then we're going to dive into my top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. We'll end this little bad blow with a little bit of movie talk, and we'll carry on to a little bit of a Super Bowl preview. We'll just kind of talk about that a little bit, obviously, as we're coming off of the championship weekend. But as always, I'm joined by my partner here, Mr. Matthew Fox. How are you, sir?
Doing pretty good. It's supposed to be almost 60 degrees here the next 3 days, which after Monday being a grand high of 8 degrees, I'm ready.
It's exhausting. We had a little bit of an ice storm, which caused massive shutdown of the entire universe of Tennessee because it was a little bit of ice on the ground. Oh my God, it is supposed to be 60 degrees here next week too. 60, 60, 60, 60. Wow.
Yeah, we got ice here. Sunday mornings I have to be at work by 6, so I went out at 5:25 to start my car, and the sheet of ice was so thick there was a couple windows I just couldn't even chisel it all off after 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about and everybody wonders why everybody's sick, but we're not here to be experts of anything other than actually, we're not experts of anything. We're just here to have a good time. But that said, we are going to talk about quite a few things this week. First, we're going to talk about some news and notes. The biggest news of the week, obviously, is Tom Brady has retired. There wasn't any big hoopla. He just dropped an Instagram message announcing to the whole entire world that he's retiring. No long messages, no love letters, no nothing like that. Just a thank you to everybody. And in return, everybody else that wrote him a love letter last year did not write him another love letter. They just reposted their love letter of last year. Just said, thanks, Tom, for everything, including me. It is the end of an era. It is, it's an interesting one because it's funny to me because I think a lot of people have stated now that Aaron Rodgers' ego is not going to allow him to retire now because that means he'd go in the same class as Tom Brady. So they would go in together. Now he might wait a year, of course, whatever that looks like in the future. But just a few notes on Brady. I mean, obviously, it's incredible to see how long he thrived when he did. We are all under the same thing. I felt like he should have retired after he won the Super Bowl in Tampa, the first Super Bowl in Tampa. It was just like, hey, I did it. I did it without Belichick. I did it without the Patriots. I told you I could do it type of scenario. And then even last year, I mean, he had an incredible year. It's not that he had a bad year this year. That just the team around him got old, and including him. And there were some things that he did that he wasn't capable of doing anymore. But that said, one of, if not, in my opinion, he's the greatest quarterback of all time. If you don't think that, I really don't care. I'm not even in the argument of not you, but the people listening. I don't even care anymore. But incredible era, incredible to see. I'm not sure we're ever going to see a quarterback win 7 Super Bowls. It'll be interesting to see if that happens, but it'll be a hard feat to achieve. But what I want to talk about is your thoughts on your brand new head coach, Mr. Sean Payton. After we're in, we're out, we're in, we're out. We're not getting Payton. We are getting Payton. DeMeco Ryans might be the guy, but then DeMeco Ryans chooses the Texans. And then, is it true that DeMeco Ryans was the finalist? Is Sean Payton the backup plan? What are your thoughts as a Broncos fan?
It's been the weirdest coaching search, and I don't know if that's because they were really good at not letting anything leak out, and a lot of people were making guesses. There's been a lot of reports about the DeMeco Ryans thing. People who are actually Broncos insiders, who have been Broncos insiders for years, have completely refuted that. And I seriously doubt Sean Payton is going to be sitting there knowing that's going on and still be competing to come. I think that they were just trying to work out. I think it took so long because they were trying to figure out if they could get the Saints lower than what it went, because giving up a first round pick and a second round pick to get a coach is a lot. That really,
especially after giving up what you gave up for the quarterback that you have.
Well, and so that leaves Denver kind of savaged on draft picks for 2 years, and then even next year you're going to be missing a second after they had traded Bradley Chubb to try to get a first back to try to rebuild. And there's still some legitimate questions. I think it also is going to be interesting who he gets as a staff around him. There was a lot of feeling that Vic Fangio was coming back as defensive coordinator, which would have been kind of interesting. And now ultimately he has said he is going to Miami after all, after kind of jerking Miami around for a few days, maybe a week. It looks like they're considering their coordinator they had last year, Ejiro Evero, looking at Brian Flores. I was curious. Looks like he wants to bring Joe Lombardi as his offensive coordinator, who was with him with the Saints. Didn't obviously work out that great for the Chargers. But there's a lot of pressure on Sean Payton and Russell Wilson to get results. It's not an easy division. The only thing that's helping them right now is that the Raiders seem to have completely imploded as an organization. But that, to me, is the most likely spot for where Aaron Rodgers probably ends up. Because I don't really buy that Josh McDaniels wants to tie his fortunes to Jimmy G and his Mr. Glass frame. And obviously they're not getting Tom Brady. And we've seen some of these pictures of Rodgers and Devontae Adams together. I think there's greater potential if they were going to go that way. But the Chiefs are still a good team. I don't know what to make of the offensive coordinator hiring for the Chargers with Kellen Moore going there. But the AFC West still on paper has a lot of loaded rosters. Denver has a few questions, should be interesting. I also thought the other coaching hiring of Ryan's going to the Texans was interesting too, because the Texans, I didn't know how appealing that job was, purely because of the front office, who hired 2 coaches in consecutive years where no one would have expected the team to win if you were actually looking at the roster, and somehow penalize those coaches for not winning. I like D'Amico Ryans as a young coaching candidate. I think it's interesting too that a lot of people assumed he was going to go try to find a veteran offensive coordinator, maybe somebody who had head coaching experience to pair with, to have that kind of work out well. And it seems like the first few interviews they're doing are with like position coaches who've never been coordinators. One of them being the Patriots offense.
Yeah, so I love the D'Amico Ryans hiring as well. I think that's more of a hometown thing. Ryans also, his wife, his wife does have a job down there in that area, I think it is, or she's from that area, one or the other. But with that, it's interesting because of, you're right, how they've handled their last 2 coaches is kind of been kind of disrespectful in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? I love that, Lovie Smith to me, what Lovie Smith was the hire that they really didn't want to do. They kind of wanted to hire Josh McCown as the head coach, but then they went Lovie Smith after all that controversy. But I'm excited for D'Amico. He's a good up-and-coming defensive lineman. I hope he succeeds. They have talent. They have draft picks. They have capital. It's just, converting on that. Can he kind of drive that, especially on the defensive side of the ball where they need some help? They have some good offensive tools. Obviously, Brandon Cooks is probably gone. You know what I mean? I'm pretty positive he'll get traded this offseason. You have Dameon Pierce that'll come back. They need to figure out the quarterback situation. They do have the second pick, so maybe they can do something there. But they're still a very young team that I hope that – they're not going to win, but if anything, let's just say 4 or 5 games next year. You know what I mean? This team isn't going to compete tomorrow. Even in a weaker division now, as that division continues to get weaker, you're looking at a Colts team that's regressing by the day. You have another aging year of Jonathan Taylor under his belt. You have a quarterback situation that's very murky. You have a wide receiver group that's not very, and then you don't even have a head coach. I saw somewhere where they're talking, they might consider making Jeff Saturday the head coach. And I'm just like, what is going on? Like, did you not see what he did? Like, it was an awful job. Don't get me wrong. We all loved the story because when it came out, and then he came out and won the first game, and then it was like, what happened? Like, the team demolished, So I don't understand what's going on there. I think that like, if Jeff Saturday is the head coach, he's like the 19th fallback plan there. You know what I mean? Like, that's what that looks like. Because honestly, at the end of the day, they might have been in on Peyton a little bit, but Peyton, I mean, they don't have anything attractive there. They have no attractive.
Colts are the one place where Peyton didn't go interview.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there was there's nothing there that really has anything redeemingly of why you would want that job.
The Colts and the Cardinals are both kind of hot messes.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very interesting to see who they end up with as coaches.
I think the Cardinals might have been a little bit more attractive if Murray was going to be healthy going into this year. And I think that's
another team they're probably disassembling. I doubt they keep Hopkins and Ertz. I think
staring
at a little bit of a rebuild. Yeah.
Yeah, Hopkins already asked out. So, but I think if Peyton would have came in, maybe he could have talked Hopkins into staying. But I feel like that job's not as attractive if Murray's not 100% healthy, and we know he's not going to be healthy, right? So why would you come in year one with so many question marks when you could go to Denver, which people do forget? Russell Wilson had a rough year, but also, like, I feel like he could bounce back. Wilson has the ability to bounce back.
If you were looking at it too, like, numerically, the first 15 games of the season, the numbers are pretty terrible. The 2 games without Nathaniel Hackett, Wilson averaged over 300 yards.
Yeah.
The offense looked demonstrably different, which kind of gives you an implication that something horrendous was going on in the previous regime.
And I think that guys like Jerry Jeudy, who might have been traded, might stay now because of Sean Payton does bring a lot to the table offensively. And it's very attractive to players because obviously if you have great seasons, what does that mean? You're going to get more money. You know what I mean? So it's very attractive. It's like Juju. Juju turned down more money to go to the Chiefs, had a very good year with the Chiefs. Not a great year, had a good year with the Chiefs, but I'm sure he'll get paid this offseason. He's one of the more attractive free agents this offseason. So
now I'm more interested too in like Chase Edmonds because you've seen what Sean Payton has done with running back combinations. A lot of people talking about Denver has nothing at running back. I think people forgot Javonte Williams lives. He tore his ACL. He'll be back. And they made that trade and actually have Chase Edmonds. And while I didn't love Chase Edmonds as a primary back in Miami, as a
third down back,
especially as a pass catcher and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. So I like. Look, I don't love what they gave up, especially since you really gave up 3 first-round picks for Sean Payton and Russell. 3 first rounds and 2 second rounders for Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. I think it comes down to. And it really
3 second rounds.
3 second rounds.
3 first, 3
first, and Bradley Chubb to get Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, basically, right?
No Fant too.
No Fant. Damn. But with that said, I don't know. It's going to be interesting because the thing about it is, at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, it's going to be the Broncos will implode in a year or two, right? You know what I mean? It's going to look rough, but. I don't know. That said, just quick thoughts on the Super Bowl. Eagles, Chiefs, not surprising, but it is kind of surprising. I'm not going to spend too much time on the referees here. It's been rehashed, it's been beaten down. Something's got to give. I do think that the refs had a heavy hand. I'm not going to sit here and say NFL's not rigged. Sorry, not saying that at all. We'll never say that it's rigged. But it didn't look very good this past week because on the biggest stage with the most eyes, some of the more questionable things I've ever seen happened. That said, Bengals had the opportunity to win that football game at the same time. There was questionable calls. It doesn't matter. We're here. Bengals or Chiefs versus Eagles. I think the biggest key to the game, if the Eagles can get to Mahomes, this might look like the Super Bowl of the Bucs versus Chiefs. Honestly, it might be a lopsided win for the Eagles. It's going to depend on Mahomes' ability to get out of the pocket. He's still hurt. You could tell that in the Bengals game, especially at the end of the game, whenever he ran for that first down. He was very hobbled. But now he does get 2 weeks to kind of rest and relax. So that's good for him, good for the team, obviously. But any just quick thoughts before we dive into the quarterbacks?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. The first game ended up being kind of a wash because of that early injury to Brock Purdy, and then Josh Johnson gets knocked unconscious, and you basically know the 49ers don't have a quarterback. So that was kind of a bummer, but the Eagles played very well. They're a very good team. I think they probably would have won that game regardless. I know a lot of people feel like they only got a free pass because the 49ers got hurt. I think that dismisses everything they did during the season and how dominant they were. The things they did in that game, getting sacks, getting turnovers, is the things they were doing to every team all season long. And that is probably cause for concern for the Chiefs. No team is more happy about the week off between the Super Bowl and the conference championship games than Kansas City. They need Mahomes to get better, but also receivers. Juju got knocked out. Hardman was out. Kadarius Toney was out. They were down to basically MVS and players that we haven't really seen play much or do anything. They could use some time to get back healthy, but it's very much like we thought. The Chiefs' ability to get pressure consistently was probably going to determine the AFC Championship game. Now the reverse is true of Kansas City. They spent a lot of money after that Tampa Bay Super Bowl rebuilding that offensive line, knowing that was an important thing that they had to get right. And they've done pretty well with that, but that's Philadelphia's game. They want to get in your face, they want to get pressure, and they want to force you into turnovers. And that's going to be where the game's won or lost, I think.
I agree. All right. That said, we have talked about it at the top of the show. We are going to jump into this week. We're going to take a look at the quarterback position. Matthew Fox is going to look at it from a dynasty perspective, and then I'm going to look at it from, in my opinion, the top 10 quarterbacks in football. Matthew Fox, hit us with your top 10 dynasty quarterbacks.
Yeah, so I'm going to preface this by saying no position is more in flux probably this off season than quarterback. You have a huge group of players who are potential free agents. We have a huge group of players who we have questions about, teams who have multiple prospects that all have questions, like San Francisco. And that makes it kind of hard for Dynasty too. We're doing 10, but I don't even feel rock solid about the bottom couple in this group. Once you get past about QB 7 on my list, I start to have some pretty significant questions. And there are guys that I've dropped down that I have lower because of huge injury and other concerns. Like Kyler Murray's not on this list. We don't know when he's coming back. We don't know who his coach is. The coach and GM that drafted him and gave him an extension in Arizona are gone. He's never thrown for 4,000 yards or more than 26 touchdowns. Tua, I loved what he did when he was out there, but those concussions really scare me. There's been legitimate talk. Is he going to retire? And you just don't know. There's other players that have risen and fallen whose futures are really in flux. So getting to 10, last year was pretty easy. It's like, man, I am having to make tough cuts because I'd like to have more people in my top 10. Getting to 10 this year was, do I feel good enough about 10 quarterbacks? So number 10 for me is Deshaun Watson. We're going to set aside what kind of a person he still is, but in terms of situation, he's one of the guys that has a pretty firm, rock solid, long-term contract. They have some decent weapons. You saw some flashes during the time that he played at the end of 2022, and that was a guy coming off of pretty much missing 2 years. Now he gets a full offseason to work into shape. Before he went out with his issues, he was a top 5 candidate and he was a top 5 producer. I think there's still some of that potential there with the Browns. Number 9 for me, Lamar Jackson, another guy that has potentially top 5 talent and has tons of questions. For me, the talent and the likelihood that Baltimore is going to franchise tag him, and if nothing else, and even if he doesn't go to Baltimore, there are tons of teams that have openings where he could go, maybe places where he actually might have some better passing game weapons. The injury risk is real. We've seen that wash out the last 2 seasons, but he was QB 5 through week 12. When he was healthy and available, he's a producer. And I think that's just what you have to kind of go on in this landscape. Number 8 for me is Dak Prescott. He's produced numbers the last few years pretty consistently. I have some big questions about what's happening with the Cowboys. We know Mike McCarthy's taking over as the primary play caller. Is that going to be good for Dak? Is that going to be bad for Dak? Who can tell? And then the quarterback right above him, number 7, Justin Herbert, who gets Dak's former offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. You know, I like his weapons. I like his talent. If it was this time last year, I would have told you there's nothing could move him out of the top 5 for me. But he had an okay season. I don't always know what the Chargers are doing in terms of coaching and scheme. And sometimes we've seen, even for good players, that can cap some of your value and upside. Herbert isn't
wanted Sean Payton there so bad.
Well, and Herbert's not the kind of quarterback that's going to supplement largely with his legs. So that always puts him a little bit lower than some of the runners. Number 6 for me is Trevor Lawrence. I love the year 1 to 2 jump for him. I think there's a lot of promise and potential in this partnership with Doug Peterson, the way they're building a team around him. They have another offseason to get some more pieces. We all think they kind of were a little bit ahead of schedule this year. And if you looked at the AFC South right now, you'd be hard-pressed to say they shouldn't be the favorites going into next year, barring some like miraculous turnarounds for some of these teams in the offseason. Number 5 for me is Justin Fields. And I know you're going to have listened to my argument about Lamar Jackson not having weapons and said, hold my beer. But Justin Fields was still a top 5 quarterback throughout the season when he was in there, despite having arguably the worst line weapon combination in the league. The Bears have tons of cap space. They have tons of draft picks. I expect them to build significantly around him. I didn't think acquiring Claypool was a bad idea. You're going to go through a whole offseason with Claypool, Mooney, and Cole Kmet to start. They really need to build into that offensive line. I don't buy the narrative that the Bears are going to take a quarterback at 1, but even if they did, they would move Justin Fields. And again, there are no shortage of teams that need starting quarterbacks. I like the talent. I like what we saw him be able to do, taking a year 1 to 2 leap in a much worse situation than what Trevor Lawrence had. Number 4 for me is Jalen Hurts. He's earned the right to be up there. He has done everything he's been asked to do. It's kind of a crucial off season because they're going to have to make real serious determination about paying him as a 2nd-round draft choice. He's heading into a contract year, but I expect that he's probably going to stay in Philadelphia. They have built the infrastructure on offense that they should be able to succeed. I know we're going to say Miles Sanders is a free agent. I don't know that it matters that much who your primary running back is when you have a quarterback that can run like that, and they have great weapons with Goddard, Devonta Smith, and A.J. Brown. They've done a good job building their lines and defense. I like what Jalen Hurts has done, and I think he has potential and upside there for years to come. Number 3 for me, Joe Burrow. I don't know what more he needs to do. He's been in the AFC Championship game 2 years in a row. He has a great cast surrounding him. They're going to do something different at running back there. The running back class of free agents and draft class is incredibly deep. So going into this year needing a running back isn't really a problem as long as you have the resources to go get something. And I think Cincinnati can make that happen. I fully expect after what's going on with Mixon and his production on the field that they're going to release him. They actually saved $10 million against the cap, against only $2 million dead cap to cut him this summer. And I don't foresee him coming back. I think they'll do something there. They have great receivers with Higgins and Chase. Hopefully they'll find a way to be able to bring back Hayden Hurst because they had created just a great passing offense. I like what they did last offseason, building the line in front of him. And I think when those guys come back healthy, if they can add a couple more pieces for depth, they're going to be ready to rock and roll. Number 2 for me, Patrick Mahomes. The guy's been in 5 AFC Conference Championship games in a row. He's going back to the Super Bowl. This year, he pretty much proved that it doesn't matter who you give him at wide receiver. he's still going to throw for 5,000 yards and roll it up there. Just probably few safer bets. And then I still have Josh Allen 1. Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow are better passers, but Josh Allen brings that dimension as a runner, and Buffalo has shown no signs or implication that they want to move away from that. And I think it's only a matter of health. If Allen starts breaking down health-wise, he'll drop down. But right now, the production you get is just insane.
I can't be mad at it. Solid list. It's funny because it's like you have some of the same. I have 8 of the 10 guys you have in your dynasty list transferred over to my top 10 NFL quarterbacks. And let me prefix by saying this 100% for all of you at home. This list is not just 2022, right? You know what I mean? This is a body of work of this entire quarterback who I would put on the football field, maybe 2-minute drills, who I think could win me a football game. You look at the arm strength, you look at the stats, you kind of put all this stuff together, and then this is what you get out of my top 10. I got a few quarterbacks on the outside looking in. Deshaun Watson is somebody who I think can still be a top 10 quarterback in football. He came in and rusty. He looked like shit. I expect him to have a full offseason now. You have some weapons there. I think they're still going to make some moves, et cetera, right? Derek Carr, somebody I like a lot. I can't wait to see where he goes. It'll depend on where he goes, so forth and so forth. He does have some problems that's why he's not in my top 10. Obviously, he's going to be playing somewhere else. Kirk Cousins, a guy I like a lot. He's more, obviously he's more keen to winning football games in the regular season than he is in the playoffs or even in prime time. Tua on the outside looking in for the same reasons I think Matthew Fox might have mentioned. I don't know. He might have mentioned it before we got on the air. I don't remember. But his health issues, we're not 100% certain if this man's going to be 100% healthy ever again. And Russell Wilson, another guy on the outside looking in. I understand he had a rough year, but you can't just knock a guy off of 1 year. I'm looking again at the whole body of work. But with that being said, here's my top 10. All right. My 10 through 6 look like this. Number 10, I've got Trevor Lawrence. I think the biggest thing for me, putting him at 10, I struggled here. This is the first time. I will say this, 8, 9, and 10, I didn't feel great about, right? You know what I mean? Because I feel like any of the guys that I have on the outside looking in could have supplemented into here. And I also feel like these guys could be interchangeable however you look at them. But Lawrence showed a lot in that playoff game and down the stretch. I think that him and Peterson are going to be a force to be reckoned with. That's why I have him slotted at number 10. Number 9, I have Matthew Stafford. Stafford's still a very good quarterback. He might be on the downhill of his career. I don't care. I'm talking about full body of work. He was injured this latter half of the season. I still think that he's still a top 10 quarterback in this league when he's healthy. Okay. Once we see another year of uncertainty, health issues, let's maybe boot him out. Number 8, I got Dak Prescott, a guy I like a lot, but also very confused. I'm hoping maybe the Kellen Moore leaving helps Dak more than it might hurt. I think Mike McCarthy is just an absolute absurd, horrible head coach. I thought it was a bad hire. It was a very bad hire for Dak and that entire team. But that said, it is what it is. All right. Moving in at number 7, Jalen Hurts. Somebody that has proven the haters and doubters, including myself, 100% wrong. I want to see more out of him. I want to see this consistently, right? He does have a game that makes you worry about what the future holds for his body. The same can be said for Josh Allen. You know what I mean? Matthew Fox mentioned it. Can the wear and tear of running the ball so much hinder you? You saw that these running quarterbacks, I understand that people love them, but they take so many more hits and I think they need to be more protective of their bodies, right? Josh Allen is very much a let me get hit kind of quarterback when you would really love to see him slide more. I would love to see somebody kind of say this to guys like Hurts and Allen and Herbert. Herbert doesn't run that much, but I feel like he puts his body on the line way more than he probably should. And Justin Fields, the same thing. I hope we see Justin Fields, who got hurt. Hurts got hurt. Fields got hurt. They missed games this year. You know what I'm saying? So what you want to see out of these guys is longevity. Hurts is probably on the verge of that top 5, and another season, I don't have a doubt in my mind he probably would be. He'd probably crack my top 5, right? Number 6, Lamar Jackson, a guy I love probably a lot more than a lot of other people do, but I also look at it's funny that you mentioned this, the cast of characters that surround him always question what he's able to do. He's still able to produce with whatever he's got. Another guy, I think he might have been a little bit more healthy down the stretch than we might believe, which I can't be mad at him. Nobody should be mad at Lamar going to business for himself, especially after playing an entire year. Even if he was hurt, you come back, you get hurt, you're not getting paid as much as you could potentially get paid. If the Ravens say, hey, Lamar, we're not going to pay you, there's going to be no less than 15 teams knocking on Baltimore's door asking for the price of Lamar Jackson. I don't have a doubt in my mind that teams, we talk about this top heavy. The league has about 10 to 12 decent quarterbacks, but the rest of the league is still in question. I would take Lamar Jackson over probably 20 other quarterbacks in football right now. Not a doubt in my mind. Obviously, the price is going to be high, but that said, number 6, Lamar Jackson. Justin Herbert at number 5. One person I struggled to rank in this because I feel like you could have Herbert as high as 5, or you could have Herbert as low as in that 8 to 10 range, depending on how you feel. Fantasy football-wise, 1,000% agree with Matthew Fox because in that perspective, he's not consistent enough, but I think it's play calling. Nothing in my bones wanted more than Staley to be fired. 2 years ago, I was a Staley guy. I think analytically, he's smart. I think he's a smart coach, but I don't know if he's a smart head coach. There's a big difference, and we've noticed that through coaches throughout the year. I really was rooting for Sean Payton to go there because I felt like Sean Payton could have done a lot with Herbert, could have done a lot with that team. There's a lot of question marks because Herbert is going to go into a contract year. We're going to have to, not yet, but he's going to be in the conversation to get an extension soon. When he is, you're going to have to pay him. What does that look like? What does that look like the rest of the team? Who's the odd man out because of that? You know what I mean? There's a lot of factors here. Keenan Allen's not getting any younger. Keenan Allen's missing games. Mike Williams misses games. Austin Eckler has another year on his belt. There's a lot of questions surrounding that offense that make me concerned. And, of course, you have a coach. But Herbert's talent is, bar none, incredible. He's got a great arm. Number 4, this might come as a surprise. I have Josh Allen at number 4. I love the talent. Again, this full body of work. I really feel like there are 2, 3, and 4 could be interchangeable. Wouldn't be mad about it. Okay, Josh Allen, incredible talent. Can't really say anything bad about the guy other than I want him to secure the football a little bit more in 2023. Stop fumbling the ball so much. Stop putting your body on the line at every single turn. Whoever the Ken Dorsey, offensive coordinator, I think up there right now, run the ball. Run the ball. Find a running back that you like and run the ball. Take the pressure off of Josh Allen. Like, you can see these other teams. Jalen Hurts, you don't have to have a great running back. You're right. Miles Sanders is off that team, but he's interchangeable. Kenneth Gainwell comes in the game, still runs very well. You know what I mean? Boston Scott comes in the game, runs very well. You know what I'm saying? I think you're right, especially with the Bengals as well. Bengals will pluck a running back, and they'll have success because of the quarterback and that the play action, the ability of your quarterback to take the team to the next level. Look at the Chiefs. Jerick McKinnon is having a second resurgence of his career because of what Mahomes is able to do out there on the football field. All right, number 2, I still have number 3, I have Joe Burrow. I thought this team would take a little bit of a step back this year. I did. I said that on the air. The offensive line needs to still be fixed. Injuries hampered them down the stretch throughout the entire season. If they can fix that, more players are to them. I think they'll lose Tyler Boyd, or is it Boyd or Higgins? I think one of them. I think it's Boyd. Might be gone. But I think with that said, with Chase,
Higgins has one more year.
Yeah, Higgins has one more year. I think that Higgins will probably be gone. But I feel like you take a wide receiver in the 2nd or 3rd round where you got a Higgins, you can implement him in the offense and you can look into a better team moving forward. I don't think that they're going to miss him a whole lot. But Joe Burrow proved why he is one of the best quarterbacks in football. Aaron Rodgers is number 2. Again, whole body of work. I still would take Aaron Rodgers over just about any other quarterback in football because the talent is still there. If he goes, I don't know if he'll go to the Raiders. I know all signs point to that. interesting fit. They have a lot of weapons. I think if Rodgers goes there, you lose Jacobs because of the contract, dollar cents. If they make it work, I mean, the NFL, the salary cap's a myth. But
I think they lose Jacobs regardless based on the tweets. I don't think he's had a good relationship with their front office.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I think they franchise tag him. I think they would be smart not to. But at the same time, it's a lot of money that you're tying up. And if you're trying,
they should have just done the 5th-year option if they're going to franchise tag, because that would have been cheaper.
100%. But Aaron Rodgers, a guy I love. I respect his game. You can't not respect this guy. He still had a good year. Another guy that I've never understood why they haven't surrounded him with better receivers. I mean, obviously they had Devontae Adams. They got rid of Adams, but like they had the opportunity to give this man athletes in the first round for the last couple years, and we've seen these first round receivers produce on the football field. We saw some good chemistry down the stretch with some of the rookie receivers, but I mean, you put this man on the Jets, you put this man on the Raiders. I mean, you're talking about him changing a franchise around a little bit, but Aaron Rodgers will still be number 2. But if you look at that, Rodgers might not be in the league in what? Let's just say a year or two, Rodgers retires. That opens the door for, and if let's just say Stafford, Rodgers retire in the next year or two, which I think is a very good realm of possibility, you're opening the door for 2 other guys to enter this list. But that said, Patrick Mahomes, look, I still think that Patrick Mahomes, the hype is just absolutely absurd. It's ridiculous. People talking about he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Let's see the entire career. Right now, is he the best quarterback in football? Yes. Did I say at the beginning of this football season that I thought that he would be the MVP and he would prove that Tyreek Hill was don't get me wrong, Tyreek Hill is amazing. And I feel like they do miss him in the playoffs, but Mahomes has proven that he's going to throw for 5,000 yards with whoever's on that football field. Kelsey does help. Kelsey opens the field for other receivers, but he's proven that he is the best quarterback in football. Not that he ever had it. Not that there was really any doubt to me, but Mahomes is Mahomes. He's doing it out there when one leg in the playoffs. He's looked very impressive. He has the grit. I think that he does get overhyped overall because he does still make some stupid bonehead mistakes that sometimes make you just want to put your head through a wall. But that's when he flips the ball like randomly or whatever, it makes me so it makes me so mad. Sometimes it works, but sometimes he really almost cost him that game with that fumble. That fumble was stupid. You know what I mean? He does make stupid plays. It's the same shit that I criticized Josh Allen for. But Trevor Lawrence, 10, Stafford, 9, Prescott, 8, Hurts, 7, Lamar Jackson, 6, Herbert, 5, Josh Allen, 4, Joe Burrow, 3, Aaron Rodgers, 2, Patrick Mahomes, 1. Matthew Fox, I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I love Allen too, and that it's his production that puts him at number 1 for fantasy, but he has definitely moved into that range. We talked about, can he win the big game? And I think those are kind of the questions for him and Herbert. They're going to have to get a big win to push them over the next hurdle. Lawrence is on the rise, hasn't hit that kind of gap yet. I think the same is true of Dak. So Dak, maybe even Lamar, because we've seen years where they were the top seed. Famously, they had the best record in the league and they got beaten by Ryan Tannehill and Tennessee. So I think that range of quarterbacks there, you have to answer the question. That to me is what separates Allen from a Burrow and Mahomes when you're talking about football terms, because he hasn't made it to that next level. They've been knocked out. He hasn't even made it to the AFC Championship game. They've gotten knocked out at the divisional round each of the last few years. They've got to clear one of those hurdles. And it's not like you're just waiting for the older guard to come out now. That was the case when he was battling New England for the division, but now these are your contemporaries. You're going to have to beat them at some point in time.
Yeah, I agree. And to be honest with you, if Hurts wins next Sunday in the Super Bowl, I think he catapults into the top 5 for me. I think he goes from where I have him at 7, and they probably slot him probably at 5 right below Allen. And I even would but again, with me, I'm looking at full body of work here. Hurts has done this now for 2 years. He's done it more so this year than he did the year before. But if Hurts comes out and proves, I would have to catapult him at least into the top 5 if he wins the Super Bowl next Sunday.
I think 7 is kind of a fair slot.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think we need to see another year.
Exactly. And that's why people might question him being 7 for me. But I feel like I need to see one more year from him. And I can easily, like I said, catapult him into the top 5. Maybe if he goes back, maybe let's say next year he goes out here, they win 12, 13 games again, which very much possible. Goes out in 12, 13 games, maybe goes to another NFC title game next year. He's in the conversation in the top 5. You know what I mean? Easily, no questions, no bar ass. But yeah, I mean, I like my list quite a bit. I think the league is very top heavy, and this next nucleus of quarterbacks that come into the league, it's going to be interesting to see if anybody can fill these shoes. Brady's officially gone. Rodgers is gone in a couple of years, either next year or I think Rodgers is gone after next year probably. Stafford is a year or 2 away. I feel like Stafford should have retired after he won the Super Bowl. I still
wouldn't rule out that he ends up going some point this offseason.
I wouldn't either. If he does, then obviously that opens the door. But that's the top 10 for now. I'd love to hear other people's thoughts. Criticize away. Do whatever you want to with that. It is what it is. But that was a great episode of the show. If you follow along, make sure to follow Matthew Fox on Twitter at Nighthawk7734. Follow myself at @RickyBlair_. Head over to the Music City Drive-In for all the latest movies, reviews, articles, sports, et cetera, et cetera. We got a lot of stuff pumping out, especially the off season here. We'll have some fun stuff for you guys. If you stick around for the movie corner, we're going to dive into that right now. All right, we have what I believe is going to be a very, very strong weekend at the movies, because you have the greatest movie ever made dropping this weekend. And I'm not talking about M. Night's Knock at the Cabin. I'm talking about 80 for Brady. 80 for Brady is dropping in theaters this weekend. I have seen it. We'll talk about it in just a minute. Knock in the Cabin also dropping in theaters this weekend, which is fantastic. We've talked about this a couple weeks ago, but man, movies are here, man. It's interesting year for movies because we're jam-packed. We're jam-packed with films. We're jam-packed with movies in theaters for the next few weeks. I'm excited because that means we're going to be in the movies. That means we're going to be talking about movies. We're going to be diving into movies. All the movies. I'm very, very excited about it. Matthew Fox and I will have a podcast dropping, I think probably, if you're listening to this, it's probably already out. New podcast I started. It's called the City of Stars podcast over on the PodSpot Network or SpotPod Network, one of those things. But with that said, you'll also be able to find the video over here on YouTube. But Fox, I don't want to dive too deep into your Knock at the Cabin thoughts because we're literally recording that podcast after this podcast. But 80 for Brady, the most anticipated movie of your life, right?
I mean,
and for Falcons fans, don't go see this movie.
Oh, is it that Super Bowl?
It's that Super Bowl.
Yeah, it should be pretty exciting. I'm definitely looking forward to that. It's been a good time for TV as well. Really enjoying Poker Face on Peacock. The latest episode dropped yesterday. I haven't had a chance to go watch it yet, but I watched the first 4 that dropped last week. Really enjoyed that one. I know you're enjoying Shrinking on Apple TV Plus, so there's some good options if you want to stay at home. There were some interesting streaming films last week that you and I both liked. The You People on Netflix and Shotgun Wedding on Amazon Prime. So there's a lot of things, even if you end up like getting iced in, like the entire state of Texas.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree. I love You People. Big fan of it. Obviously we both caught a couple films from the Sundance Film Festival. I like Shotgun Wedding too. Did you like Shotgun Wedding?
Yeah, I thought it was fun.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what people kind of expected from that, but I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was.
I do think they lucked out that Armie Hammer's life fell apart because I spent a good deal of time trying to imagine what it would have been like him in the lead role there, and I can't imagine what it would have.
He was supposed to.
He was Josh Duhamel's character. That was the original casting. That was one of the last projects that he was attached to that he got pulled out of. I spent a good deal of time thinking about that. Like, I don't think that would have worked.
Also want to shout out my guy, stand-up comedian Nate Bargatze. He has a brand new special over on Prime Video called Hello World. Really, really, really enjoyed it. He's a funny comedian that doesn't actually have any agenda to his comedy work, so it's nice to kind of just laugh. It's kind of a cleaner comedy too, so that's kind of nice as well. But Nate Bargatze, Hello World, over on Prime Video. Next weekend, big weekend of film next weekend. I mean, just week after week right now, Fox. It's massive. You know what I mean? Just massive week after week. Obviously, Matthew Fox is, I heard they're doing like a 3 showing maybe. I think Matthew Fox is going to be in theaters on Thursday to see all the Magic Mikes. I know he's very excited about that. And then, of course, I don't know if you know this or not, folks, but you also have the re-release of Titanic. You know what I mean? Very, very excited about that. There's so many movies dropping next week, obviously, with it being Valentine's Day weekend. Somebody I used to know dropping on Prime Video at midnight, Paramount Plus. Your Place or Mine on Netflix, which I have seen, but I cannot say anything about. Let's see here. So it's an interesting week. I'm excited. Any parting thoughts here for our audience?
You know what? Try to find something to watch because I'm not really watching the Pro Bowl competition, so I'm going to declare this a football-free weekend.
Yeah, I
like Peyton and Eli. They're funny people.
Whenever you put
I can't do it.
When you put Snoop, which I didn't even know that was his nickname until somebody tweeted it out, or Sheffer tweeted it out. Tyler Snoop Huntley was going to be in the Pro Bowl. Like, do you realize that's going to be listed for the rest of his life? You know what I mean?
Tyler Huntley, Derek Carr.
Troy Aikman made the Pro Bowl one time with 13 touchdowns and 16 interceptions. It all went downhill since. So the Pro Bowl's always been a joke, and I love when everybody makes that an argument. He's a 6-time Pro Bowler. And what does that mean?
Well, and the thing is,
Silver made the Pro Bowl the 1 year after 6 guys dropped out. So
and that's the thing. You don't have to actually play in the game to be considered a Pro Bowler. All you had to do was make the roster at one point in time. So Josh Allen is a 2022 Pro Bowler. He's playing golf in Pebble Beach with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, exactly. He's too hurt to play, but at the same time, he's playing golf. I don't know.
Different set of muscles, guys.
Well, neither one of them can come through on Sunday, so they've got to golf on a Tuesday. So
Hey-o.
That said, we'll talk to you guys next week. We'll have a Super Bowl preview. Talk about it, maybe a little bit about the NFL quarterbacks for the upcoming draft, a little bit of free agency. We've got a lot of fun. Just because it's the off season doesn't mean we stop. We know the grind's 2-4-7, but I'm excited about this off season though, because I feel like Fox and I have found our rhythm. So we'll talk to you guys next week.